Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the Big House 11. This event is coming in at a B plus tier, so not as big as we typically see it, but still you got a bunch of really talented players showing up, and it should be a banger for our top 16 seeds. You're going to have Icon, Mystery, Omega, and Doorstop in 13th, Icy Mist, Zenodo, Tarek, and Syrup in 9th. In 7th, you're going to have Shattuck and Chase. 5th, Wrath and Luis. 4th place, Pocket. Third, Karama. Second, Riddles. And projected to win the entire thing is dabuz. And really quickly, before I forget to mention it, Tarek is criminally underseeded at this event. I would switch him and Wrath around. No disrespect to Wrath, but his recent placements don't really justify him being this high in the top 8 or even in the top 8 at all. He doesn't have a ton of results that we can really pull from, but he's got a 25th at Rise of Ground, which is okay, as well as a 7th place at Wave Dash, which is actually pretty good, but is it good enough to justify him as a top 5 seed? I don't think so, and Tarek's results recently have been incredible, including a top 5 placement at Rise and Grind, 9th place at Terra. I believe he got 25th at SmashCon, so I would definitely switch the seeding of Wrath and Tarek. Final thing to add, Riddles is going to be DQing from the bracket, so we're just going to be putting Black Twins in place of him. So our first top 8 qualifier is likely going to be between dabuz, Doorstop, Shattuck, and Icy Mist. I think the most likely upset that could happen before this would be Wilds over Shattuck, and it's nothing really to do with Shattuck, it's just the fact that Wilds is an insanely good player that can take someone of Shattuck's caliber, so that's definitely a possibility, but I would favor Shattuck in that matchup. And our first one is likely going to be dabuz versus Doorstop. Now, dabuz is going to be the favorite going into this one, but Doorstop looked really impressive at Riptide. I thought he played exceptionally well at that tournament with that combination of Zero Suit and PT, though it was, of course, mainly Zero Suit, and dabuz does have a lot of reps versus Mars. Now, it's been a little bit, so maybe he's a little bit rusty in the matchup, but I would still expect him to prevail there. Then you're going to have Shattuck versus Icy Mist. Now, I think Icy Mist is probably going to take this one. They've only played one time before, and it was like 3 years ago, so it doesn't really matter, but Icy Mist did end up winning that one. I actually think that Samus does really well versus Corrin. That's one of Corrin's maybe not worst matches, but I definitely think that she struggles in it. So even though Shattuck has been on a tear these past couple of events, I do think that Icy Mist will beat him. And then if we get dabuz versus Icy Mist, I think dabuz is going to be the favorite in that once again. Rosalina has some really good tools to deal with Samus. And also, dabuz can just pick Armor, which I think is Samus' worst matchup. Like, by a landslide, it's really difficult for the character to deal with. So, dabuz is the heavy favorite going into this one. Next up, you're going to have Pocket, Omega, Wrath, and Zenodo. Now, for Pocket Omega, this one's interesting. The two players have never played before, and I think Joker does pretty good versus Steve, but Pocket would definitely still be my favorite going into this, especially considering that prior to Steve, he was a Joker main, I believe. I know he played Robin and Joker. I don't know if he was his main character, but he definitely has a lot of reps with Joker, so he's going to be pretty well versed in the matchup. Now, at this point, you should be extremely well versed in the Steve matchup, so it's not really going to be people catching each other off guard. It's more going to be player versus player, but in the player versus player situation, I think Pocket has proven himself plenty of times to be the favorite going into this one. Then you're going to have Wrath versus Zenodo. Again, these two players have never played before, but I would favor Wrath to take it just because I think Sonic slightly beats Diddy Kong, and I don't really have any other information to go off of, so that's going to be my guess. But I will say, Zenodo and Wrath, they're two players with extremely high ceilings, and when they're playing well, they can make big upsets. So Zenodo beating Wrath isn't impossible, just like it's not impossible for Wrath to beat Pocket. And in fact, I think that Wrath will beat Pocket. I know I said he was seated too high, and now I'm projecting him to beat Pocket, but it's a really, really bad matchup for Steve. Potentially his worst matchup. I used to think it was Cloud, and I kind of still think it's Stu, but I'm slowly leaning towards Sonic. I mean, I watched Sonics play Diddy at MomoCon, and that's really all that I need. It really feels like Steve can do nothing, and Sonic just absolutely gets to abuse that character. Like, yeah, you get Diamond because Sonic's camping you, but what now? It doesn't really matter. Once you have a full resource bar, the advantage goes straight to Sonic, and when Steve has to approach, it just does not work out. So I'm going to say that Wrath is able to take that upset over Pocket. Also, something to note that I just forgot is that we haven't seen Pocket at a big event since SmashCon, so we don't really know what his form is going to be like, but based off his Twitter, it seems like he still has been grinding the game, so I don't think it's something to worry about. Our next group of top seeds are going to be Black Twins, Mystery, Chase, and Tarek. Now, for Black Twins Mystery, they've only played one time before, and it was fairly recently, going 3-0 in Mystery's favor, and I'm a little bit surprised that Black Twins didn't try out Aegis. Maybe this is just a misreport, and I'm sure the reasoning for it is just more comfortable in the matchup with Pichu, but I would have Pichu losing to Lucina, and I would have Aegis beating Lucina, so I'm a little shocked he didn't try it here, and I imagine if they do actually meet up in the bracket, that Black Twins is probably going to bust that Aegis out. Now, regardless of that, I still do think that Mystery is the favorite to take the set, but I think Black Twins is much more likely. If he does at least try the Aegis, then you're going to have Chase versus Tarek. Now, I think these players are similar enough in the rankings where it's going to be an extremely competitive set, but Tarek's form has been much better than Chase's as of late, and that's not really a diss on Chase. Tarek has just been incredible in these past couple events, so I would have him taking the set. You also have to consider that Tarek has a 2-2 record versus Rathlow, and even though he did lose their last encounter at Terra, it was extremely competitive, so he's showing a lot of proficiency in the matchup, whereas Chase, I don't really know how many reps he has versus Greninja, especially one of Tarek's caliber, so yeah, I'm going to say that Tarek takes that one. Then you're going to have Mr. E versus Tarek, and they've played twice before. One of them was at Glitch 8, and this literally means nothing. And then you have their most recent set, which means a lot at SmashCon, where it went 3-0 into Tarek's favor. You're also going to have Tarek having a mixed bag of results versus Leon, but clearly he has a lot of reps in the matchup, and he also has a multitude of times where he's coming out on top in the matchup with both Greninja and Kaze. If I had to guess what it is, it would probably just be Greninja versus Lucina, because it seems like Tarek has been leaning a lot more towards Greninja as of late, which I do think is probably the correct choice for him, because his Greninja is absolutely insane. So yeah, Tarek is going to be my pick to go through on the top 8. And our final topic qualifier, at least in the winner's side, is going to be between Kurama and Icon and Luis and Syrup. Now, for Kurama Icon, they played a total of 3 times. The last 2 encounters did go into Kurama's favor, but to Icon's credit, the last time they played was 9 months ago, so this doesn't mean a ton, but in the past, Kurama's been good in this matchup, and I would expect him to take it, but I do have to mention the fact that Icon is just a really scary player to get in your bracket, because sometimes he is just playing like one of the best players in the world, like he was at this run at Genesis, where he was able to beat Kurama. So we know that Icon can beat Kurama, but he's going to have some of that Icon magic on his side. Then you're going to have Luis versus Syrup. Now, Luis is going to be my heavy favorite going into this one. I think he's one of the best players in the entire world versus Steve, and I honestly wouldn't be shocked if Syrup went to his old main of Ness, but also I think Paulo does really well versus Ness, so I think Luis is definitely the favorite in that set. Then you're going to have Kurama versus Luis. Now, it's kind of tough to tell who's going to win this one. Kurama, though, has been very dominant in their last handful of sets. That is definitely something to note. He's won their last 5 encounters, and even though they are mainly at the local level, except for this one at DreamHack San Diego, it is showing that he has been fairly dominant as of late, so I was still going to have him as the favorite, but whenever you have players that have over 20 sets played versus each other, it's really tough to predict how they're going to do, and 59 sets played between these guys. It's going to be so many reads that are based off just what the player is going to do. I feel like it's going to be a lot more player versus player rather than character versus character. So I don't really know how it's going to go. Kurama should win it, but Luis could definitely take it. And as per usual, we're not going to be looking at the loser side just because the bracket is so fickle and a lot of these matchups are likely to change. And what I've done instead is I've taken the 20 players that I think are most likely to make top 8 in this event, and I've given them the percentages. You're going to have the confidence here with the Buzz, Wrath, Tarek, and Kurama. These are just the picks that I think are going to go through on the winner side. Somewhat confidence here with Pocket, Luis, Icy Mist, and Mystery. These are the people that I think are going to go through on the loser side, especially Pocket. I could even see him being in this tier, but that's just not how the formatting works. Pocket, I would be incredibly shocked if he didn't get into the top 8, and there's a handful of players that I think could beat him at this event. I already mentioned Wrath could take him out. I think the Buzz could take him out. Luis could take him out. There's a couple other people as well, but I think him getting double eliminated for top 8 would be pretty shocking to me. Then you're going to have the could happen tier with Chase, Syrup, Omega, Icon, and Doorstop. Now, these are all players that I've been very impressed by their ceiling, but they are a little bit inconsistent, some more than others, so it really does just depend the form they're in on that day. And if these guys are playing at like an A tier level, I could see all of them getting into the top 8, but we really just have to wait and see. Get at the perchance tier with Loaf, Ned, Elijah Mint, Candle, Nido Sharp, and Sora. Now, Elijah Mint and Candle are definitely the most interesting people in this category to me. No offense to the other ones, of course, but Candle, I would regard them as the best Olimar in America right now, excluding DeBuzz and Myron, because Myron doesn't really go to stuff, and DeBuzz doesn't really play Olimar, and Candle is insanely good at this game, very underrated player in general, so I could see them going on a run. Elijah Mint as well, he had that incredible performance at Battle of Z Umad, one of Shulk's best results this entire year, and Shulk is a character that I will never want to fight in tournament. He is just so scary, and I have no idea what he's going to do. He could kill me at 4, or he could live till 600. It is just a ridiculously good character if piloted in the right hands, and Elijah Mint is one of the best to do it, so if he had a big run here, I wouldn't be super surprised. And finally, you're going to have Jeja. Now, statistically, and if you're looking at results, you're looking at tier list, he should not get top 8 at this event. But, like, Shay doesn't really care about that kind of stuff. He just top 8s events anyway. This guy is ridiculously good. I would have him as the best Kirby in the world. Even though Gilhue is really good, I just have NA bias. What can I say? I guess not NA bias, more America bias. But I think Shay has a chance to make top 8 at this event. The bracket's not super good, but he's playing Kirby, so it never really will be. And if he's able to pop off, it would be kind of crazy. And we have finally arrived at the top 8. As per usual, we're just going to be talking about the projected seedings, but since Riddles is DQing, I'm going to put Chase in his place, and then to Chase his place in the loser side, I'm going to put Tarek down. Now, our first matchup is going to be dabuz versus Pocket, and I would definitely have dabuz coming out on top of this one. He is very good versus Steve, and Rosalina, I'm not saying she's the secret counter Steve, but she's got some very good tools in the matchup, and dabuz is just incredible at using them, so I would definitely expect dabuz to take that one. Then you're going to have Kurama versus Chase. Now, I think Kurama is the heavy, well, I don't want to say heavy favorite going into this, but he is definitely the favorite for me. I mean, we saw the amount of reps that he has versus Luis. Maybe this could be to the detriment of him just because he's used to Luis's style of Palutena. All of a sudden, there's a different one and you don't really know what to do. The tempo's different, but considering that Kurama has so many reps in the matchup and he should be fairly comfortable, I think he'll come out on top. Also, just thought I should mention that Chase and Kurama have played once before and it did go into Kurama's favor. Editing for Vlog, I know the bracket doesn't align for Tarek to be in Chase's spot, but I want to talk about him, so deal with it. In the loser side, you're going to have Shattuck versus Wrath and Luis versus Tarek. Now, for Shattuck, Wrath, these guys actually played very recently at Rise and Grind, in fact, and it was a 3-0 in Shattuck's favor, and I would expect him to take it this time as well. Corrin has some pretty good tools versus Sonic. I could definitely see that matchup being even. It's, of course, not winning for Corrin because, you know, Sonic doesn't really lose matchups, but it's good enough, and I do think that Shattuck will come out on top there. Then for Luis Tarek, it's kind of the same points I made earlier on, but now, instead of Chase, it's Luis. This is the same character. Maybe the Fox comes out, but we haven't seen that in a long time from Luis, and because of that, I'm going to pick Tarek to win. In losing quarters, you're going to have Chase versus Shattuck and Pocket versus Tarek. Now, for Chase Shattuck, they did play at SmashCon, and it was a 3-0 in Shattuck's favor, and because of that, I am going to be picking Shattuck to win it. Now, I don't imagine it's a 3-0 this time around, but if you're looking at the recent placements, Chase's results aren't bad per se, but Shattuck's are definitely better. Shattuck's got a 9th at SmashCon and a 7th at Rise and Grind for reference, so he's been really impressive these past couple events, and I would expect him to carry that momentum into this one, considering that this was the first event that Shattuck ever top 8'd. By first event, I mean the first major he ever top 8'd, and I'm sure he wants to do extra well this time around. And then you're going to have Tarek versus Pocket. Now, I actually think that Greninja does pretty good into Steve. I'm not saying he necessarily wins, but I could definitely see that matchup being even, but even with that, I would still expect Pocket to win. He's probably not going to be super well versed in the Greninja matchup. I mean, maybe he is, but considering how much most people know about Greninja, Tarek's definitely going to have the knowledge advantage on his side, but Pocket is a top 20 player in the world, and though Tarek can take out top 20 players, I think they're usually favored. And our top 4 is going to be dabuz versus Kurama and Shattuck versus Pocket. Now, for dabuz Kurama, dabuz is the heavy favorite for me going into this set. I would be very shocked if Kurama won it, and that's no offense to Kurama, but dabuz is probably the best player in the entire world versus Mario. I think Rosalina does fairly well versus the character, as well as the last time that they played, I believe it was Lit Invitational. Kurama tried the Corrin, and the Corrin wasn't bad per se, but it definitely wasn't up to stuff to be able to deal with a player of dabuz's caliber. So unless that Corrin has had a lot of work in the meantime, he has cooked up something extra special for this matchup, I think that dabuz is going to be the favorite to win that one. In the loser side, though, you're going to have Pocket versus Shattuck, and they played twice before. The last encounter, though, did go Shattuck's way 3-0, and I actually think that Corrin is a pretty good pick into Steve. I'm not necessarily saying she's the truth, but if I had to say who's winning that matchup, I would say that Corrin wins it. Now, personally, I think it's even, but I'm not an expert on Corrin matchups, so we're not going to talk about that anymore. As I kind of mentioned earlier on, Shattuck has just been super impressive in these past couple events, and I do believe that if he's able to beat Wrath, especially, like, once Shattuck gets momentum into this top 8, he is going to absolutely steamroll, because the past 2 times he's top 8 in a big event, more specifically a major event, which was Big House and Rise and Grind, he got 7th place and immediately got 3-0'd out of the tournament. I think if he's able to get that win over Wrath, that's going to be a massive mental barrier broken for him, and he's going to be able to steamroll through this top 8. In the losers finals, you're going to have Kurama versus Shattuck. These guys have played twice before, going 1-1. Shattuck winning his at LSI, Kurama winning his at Rise and Grind pretty recently too. So I definitely think that Kurama is going to take that set. As I mentioned earlier on as I was talking about dabuz, he does have a Korin secondary, so he's going to have a lot of knowledge in that character. And even though I don't think that Mario necessarily beats Korin, Kurama is just incredible versus sword characters because his spacing is one of the best in the entire world. So I think that Kurama is going to take that one. And in the grand finals, we get our rematch of dabuz Kurama, and I already explained it, so I won't waste your time. dabuz is going to be the winner of the Big House 11, and I'm actually very confident dabuz will win this event. I'll say 80% dabuz and 20% to the field. I don't really know who's going to take him out, not only once, but double eliminate him from the bracket. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. dabuz, in my opinion, though, is the heavy favorite, and I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The support has been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's a player that I left out, something that I got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and that's all I got to say. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.